Yo, did you know that some of the most powerful pharaohs in ancient Egypt were black? Yeah, real talk, history class kinda left that part out. But today, we're diving straight into the epic story of the Black Pharaohs, rulers who shook the ancient world, dominated empires, and flipped the script on everything we thought we knew about Egypt. Alright, let's rewind. When most people think of ancient Egypt, they picture pyramids, Cleopatra, maybe a few mummies walking around in Hollywood movies. But here's the wild part. Between 747 and 656 BC, there was an entire dynasty of black pharaohs, not from Egypt, but from Kush, what we now call Sudan. These guys didn't just roll up and take over, they brought back traditions Egypt had long forgotten. Imagine pulling up to your neighbor's house and teaching them how to be Egyptian again. That's exactly what happened. Now here's the twist that blows people's minds. These Kushite kings didn't just want Egypt's gold or land, they wanted its legacy. So, when Egypt was falling apart with weak rulers and constant invasions, the Kushites saw an opening. And who steps up? Boom, Piankhi. The first black pharaoh of the 25th dynasty. He marches north with his army, defeats multiple Egyptian rulers, and takes control of the Nile Valley like a boss. But instead of burning cities or erasing culture, he restored temples, honored Egypt's gods, and brought back ancient traditions. Talk about respect, that's legacy building right there. But yo, Piankhi wasn't even the most famous. Enter Taharqa. This man was different. Not just a king, a warrior, a builder, a legend. He ruled both Kush and Egypt, and get this, his empire stretched from Central Africa all the way into the Middle East. And during his reign, he went toe-to-toe with the rising superpower of the time, Assyria. Imagine going up against the ancient version of a global superpower, and actually holding your ground. But why don't we hear more about these black pharaohs? Why isn't this the history we're taught in school? Here's where it gets deep. For centuries, Western historians downplayed or even erased black contributions to ancient civilizations. The image of African rulers building empires, commanding armies, and influencing world culture? It didn't fit the narrative. So, their stories were buried, literally and figuratively. Some of the temples built by black pharaohs were destroyed. Their statues were smashed. And in museums? They were labeled simply as foreign rulers or Nubian invaders. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. Modern archaeology changed everything. When tombs were excavated in Sudan's ancient city of Napata, evidence poured in. Inscriptions. Wall paintings. Royal pyramids. Yeah, Sudan has more pyramids than Egypt. Suddenly, scholars couldn't ignore the facts. The 25th dynasty wasn't some side note. It was a renaissance of Egyptian culture, powered by African kings who understood its soul. And let's talk about legacy. Taharqa alone built massive temples in Karnak. He's even mentioned in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah. Yeah, this black pharaoh made biblical headlines. Not bad for someone history tried to erase. But here's where your mind really melts. The Kushites didn't just rule Egypt. They had their own cities, their own art, their own tech. They were already advanced before they took Egypt. This wasn't some rags-to-riches takeover, they were rich in culture, in strategy, in spirit. Now you might be wondering. If all this is true, what else have we missed about African history? What other buried stories are out there, waiting to be told? That curiosity? Hold on to it. Because when we start shining a light on the real past, not the one edited for textbooks, we start seeing the world differently. Africa wasn't just a continent of tribes. It was the home of kings, queens, empires, and visionaries. The black pharaohs weren't just rulers. They were proof that Africa shaped civilization, not just as a footnote, but as the headline. And this isn't just about history. It's about identity. It's about knowing that greatness runs deeper than what we were told. So next time someone talks about ancient Egypt, ask them which dynasty they're talking about. Because the 25th? That was when the Nile roared black. And the world had no choice but to pay attention. Wanna hear about the queens who ruled like gods, or the African empires that made Europe nervous? Yeah, we're just getting started. Subscribe to this channel to not miss it.